Eunice. But the SG of UDA, Senator Veronica, I assure you, if we get goodwill, just political goodwill from His Excellency the President, just by rejecting one or two bills processed by the National Assembly without the input of the Senate, that will be a game changer, and the Senate will occupy its place in the legislative process. So if you can get that goodwill from the President, then you'll have solved 50% of the problems that the Senate has faced before. Bana Clark.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senior Council Chair. Let me answer some of the questions and concerns. Am I audible? Thank you. Let me answer some of the questions and concerns that have been raised, and thank you very much for the questions and the comments made. You know you have said something, if there's some reaction to it. So, Senator Osotsi, on experience sharing, I think it's very interesting what you raised. It's very odd that the National Assembly would designate a bill coming from the other house as a private member's bill. We, on the other hand, our Senate Business Committee prioritized the bills coming from the other house, regardless of who authored them. So we had now, it means we were having two houses working at cross purposes. In the Senate Business Committee, priority was given to any bill coming from the Assembly. Now it turns out in the Assembly, bills coming from the Senate, which were not sponsored by government, and the other day you had the question put to the Attorney General, why do you never send any bills of government to the Senate? So the only bills we could have from the Senate were bills done by members, because no bills were brought by government. Then those bills went to the Assembly and were designated as private members' bills and put in the back burner. So you see how we ended up where we ended up. So the good offices of the party-forming government from the Senate can be utilized to have the Assembly give reciprocal treatment to bills from the Senate. Encouraging joint sittings, I think, is a matter that could be pursued. But of course, challenges from joint sittings have also been narrated by Senator Mwaruma, where you don't get quorum from the other side or something like that. But it is worth trying. If it works, it would help a lot. The only problem is that sometimes there are conceptual difficulties of joint sittings. One house is a majoritarian house. One house has not shown the same passion and enthusiasm for devolution. So if you have two health committees, one having a joint sitting, one from a house or that believes that health should not be a devolved function in the first place, and the other coming from the view that this should be fully devolved, so such a joint sitting suffers from a very serious conceptual and ideological departure from the onset. So there is a reason, the bicameralism has a reason. It's because there are different approaches. Two houses have different ways, and they have been established for different purposes, and they approach issues from different perspectives. Otherwise, we would have one house. So bicameralism is not a mistake, and sometimes people view it as duplicating. Why would that committee consider this and the other committee? Because the committees are looking at this from different perspectives, different orientation altogether. Senator John Nyoto, I think we spoke to the issue of 8 sittings. How many do you plan to miss? Keep a good count. Senator Muma, the goodwill of the executive is absolutely imperative. Absent goodwill of the executive, we would run into serious difficulties, because bills were assented to which had not had the input of the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader would write and say, these bills have not been considered by the Senate. They concern counties. If they are assented to, then what happens? It gives an incentive to the offending house to do that again and again. Senator Muma, about water. Water is under land and natural resources and environment. That's where matters water are. But if you feel they ought to be in a separate committee, I mean, this can be considered in standing orders amendment or review. Senator Kavindu, what happens to statements and petitions which lapsed? Business which lapsed in the other house, in the Senate, has lapsed. It is not there. It needs to be brought again. So you are able to bring again if the matter is still live. On the matter of matters, statements being of county-wide concern, it doesn't mean county-wide in terms of all counties, but county-wide in county. So it's not an isolated matter. It's either a matter of national concern, all counties or most counties or many counties, or within the county, it is a matter of county-wide concern, not a pothole in a path in a village, but a matter of county-wide concern, like wildlife, human wildlife conflict in the county would be an example of a matter of county-wide concern. Senator Karungo Wadhangwa, how often do we amend the standing orders? As often as necessary. You can look at standing orders 277, 267, 268, 269. If it becomes necessary to amend the standing orders, even as a first business or there very soon after we have started our sittings, so be it. So as often as is necessary, and the various mechanisms are set out. CS to be coming to the floor, and what prevents that? The neatest way would be, it's possible by administrative maneuver to find ways to have a CSS. The neatest would be elaborate provision amendment of the standing orders. Senator Abbas and inter-house relations and conflict, and why is the senator whining baby or this matter is not as simple as it would appear. The design of the Constitution has made one house have unlimited legislative mandate. The other house has limited legislative mandate. The scope of limitation is to be determined by the two houses. Where is the incentive for the house with an unlimited jurisdiction to negotiate reasonably? Because if I am limited and if you are limited and I'm not limited, and for us to decide your limitation, we have to agree what is the incentive for me to be reasonable. Because if I don't agree with you, then you can't move. So the Constitution never contemplated malice. The Constitution cannot, the Constitution presupposed goodwill. The Constitution foresaw that everybody would swear an oath of fidelity to the Constitution, of protection, of defense. That oath everyone swore. So the Constitution could never contemplate that one house or any official would go out of their way to hinder the other house or the other committee or the other official. That's where the judiciary comes in. Then the judiciary pronounces itself and says the scope of mandate of this limited one is the following. Then the one that's unlimited defies even that. So what do? So it's not simple. Senator Sigay offering pro bono services, thank you very much. This matter of the summons, and I know the matter you are referring to get the National Assembly had no way of getting the senator to go before it. There is provision in Article 252 for the Assembly to get a senator to go before a committee, but it is onerous. It's very difficult. They have to seek the leave of the Senate, and after the leave of the senator has also to accept. Even after the leave has been given, the senator has to decide whether he will go anyway. So it is so onerous, it's difficult even to attempt, because he will not go. Senator Mandago, delay in considering petitions. We are appealing to committees to really consider petitions seriously, because Kenyans have, a Kenyan who comes by petition has probably lost hope in other avenues of relief. But to say that if you don't consider in 60 days, whatever the prayer was is deemed to have been granted, is an interesting way to look at it. Co-sponsorship of bills is not constitutionally possible. It has to be an informal mechanism, because the only people who can bring a bill in the Senate or in the National Assembly, for that matter, is a senator or a committee. But either way, it has to come under the name of a senator. No person who is not a senator can have their name as bringing a bill, and vice versa. So any arrangement of co-sponsorship must be an informal arrangement by which you identify another a member of parliament, a member of the National Assembly, who will pick it up when it goes there. But otherwise, there is no way that a bill can have two people, one of whom is a senator and the other of whom is another person supporting a bill. Then Senator Veronica Maina. It's true, Senate does not need validation by anyone. It's here by right, it's here to stay. But the challenges are real, and we have to find ways to surmount them. And party caucuses and the good offices of the parties would help us. Thank you very much. I think those are the ones I'll speak to. Senator Kavindus, I responded about county-wide being affecting the entire county or more than one county. The statements and petitions which had lapsed have to be reinitiated, to be brought afresh. I think I have answered Senator Mandago. I've replied to that, yes. Sorry, where do we get? Committees, you can speak to that. Please.
All right. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Clerk. It's true. Before the advent of the new of the 2010 Constitution, not new, we had question time. CSs then, or ministers then, were members of the National Assembly. So as peers, questions were addressed to them, and there would be question time where they would then address those questions. Post the 2010 Constitution and the system of governance that we selected, cabinet secretaries are not members of Parliament. So they are not peers in that regard. They are not present in plenary. Both houses have really, especially at the start of the 11th Parliament, really struggled on how to structure that interaction with cabinet secretaries. In fact, I think at some point the National Assembly even tried to consider the issue of cabinet secretaries coming within plenary to address such questions. What we have done in the Senate is contained, I think, from Standing Order 51 statements. In the 11th Parliament, as my colleague said, that wasn't quite taken up as much. But in the 12th Parliament, that area of practice has really grown. So that a senator will ask a question addressed to the chair. Once the senator asks the question, other senators are allowed to make comments or to ask supplementary questions. In the Senate, it's popularly referred to as riding on the statement requested by the other senator. When it goes to committee, on the scheduled date, we make deliberate effort with the concurrence of the chairs to invite the senator who requested for the statement, so that that senator is present when the CS or whichever other stakeholder is present addressing that statement. when an issue rises to something that is so huge or cross-cutting, we sometimes have held a committee. If it's, I think we had one, for instance, for security, where all members are invited in chamber to interact with the CS, and we found that a good model. So an area which I would say is growing in the 11th Parliament, lots of challenges. I wouldn't say we've completely surmounted all, but as statistics revealed from the presentation by DC Mohammed, we're not doing too badly.
Okay, a big round of applause to all the panelists. I think that should bring this session to a close. But my friends from UDA senators, I'm happy. It seems you seem to have a very good goodwill from His Excellency the President. If you don't move quickly, because there's always mischief from National Assembly, they will amend standing orders to allow CSs to appear before National Assembly to the exclusion of the Senate. So what you need to do is to move in tandem with the National Assembly. If they move to amend their standing orders, we also move to amend our own standing orders and make sure you have the President on the same page. Otherwise, we'll have, in terms of optics, the National look like it's so powerful, it acts in public interest, it can summon CSS to appear. The Senate will not have the same powers. So there you'll have to be our ambassadors as you nurture that goodwill that is there for the Senate from the President. Now, Senators, I appeal, we just have one more brief session remaining. If you allow, we'll invite Senator for Kakamega, Senator Alwale, to take us through the final session that deals with the way forward. I'm told lunch will be combined with dinner and everything, so there'll be enough food. So Senator Alwale, can you now take over the next session, deal with way forward, and also under the closing remarks from our Deputy Speaker and Honorable Speaker.
Speaker.